A Sunday morning fire leaves 4 Vincennes families without a home. Plus, sexual abuse allegations take down another college coach. And in sports, it was another tough day on the field for the Indianapolis Colts. News Center 22 starts right now.
Local news, weather, and sports. Produced through the combined efforts of the students, staff, and faculty of Vincennes University's electronic media program, this is News Center 22.
4 families are without a home today after a fire destroyed a Vincennes apartment building this weekend. Good evening to you. For News Center 22, I'm Cameron Riddle. The Sunday morning fire happened around 10:30 at 1640 East St. Clair Street. All occupants were able to escape the 4 apartments and without injury. Reports say the building could be a total loss. The investigation into the fire continues. Meanwhile, the Old Northwest chapter of the American Red Cross is accepting donations of clothing for the displaced families. Donations can be dropped off at the Red Cross office at 316 Main Street in Vincennes. If anyone has questions about sizes of clothing needed, they can call the Red Cross at 882-2204. Monetary donations are always accepted to help the Red Cross's disaster relief fund. Indiana State Police arrested a Pike County man last week for sexual molestation and sexual misconduct with a minor. 46-year-old Adrian Durrell of Petersburg was arrested at his job and taken to the Pike County Jail. State Police initiated a criminal investigation after receiving information that Durrell had molested a Pike County boy several years ago. Police say the boy was molested on several occasions when he was between the ages of 11 and 15 years old. The alleged molesting occurred between 2002 and 2007. The victim is now an adult. A Saturday morning traffic stop landed 2 Bicknell men in jail. Indiana State Police say a pickup truck driven by 20-year-old Jeffrey Martin was caught going 72 miles per hour on State Road 67 near Church Road. After pulling over the truck, a passenger in Martin's vehicle fled on foot. The state trooper found Martin to be intoxicated. He was arrested for several offenses and taken to the Knox County Jail, where he is currently being held on bond. During the course of the investigations, troopers were able to identify the passenger as 20-year-old Anthony Tapia Aguilar of Bicknell. Tapia Aguilar was arrested after turning himself in the Knox County Jail. He was released after posting bond. Knox County's E911 system has an emergency of its own as it's rapidly losing its funding. The County Council has stepped in to provide some stopgap money, but as WTHI's Mike Grant reports, the real solution will require some work from state lawmakers.
Knox County's E911 system was supposed to be self-supporting. The equipment and salaries were supposed to be covered by fees generated on phone bills. That funding, though, has been a failure.
Our funding situation has dwindled over the past 10 years. We're receiving about 50% less. We received about 50% less in 2010 than we did in 2000.
The problem is the way the system is funded. Originally, it was covered by a fee for phone lines. Those landlines have disappeared as people move to cell phones. There is a smaller fee for cell lines, but the state takes a big chunk of that money. Local officials say the state's approach is a big problem.
If you give the state enough time, they'll find a way to mess up a good system. And that's basically what's happened.
Changing technology and dwindling revenues have finally forced the E911 system here in Knox County to ask the County Council for financial help. And this is not the only E911 system in the state that's experiencing these problems.
Every public safety answering point, every PSAP, is having the same type of funding problems that we are.
It's become such an issue that the Association of Indiana Counties has actually made it a priority for the legislature to address and to fix this.
Even though the issue is one that reaches virtually everyone with a phone or a need for an emergency service, lawmakers say it's unlikely they'll tackle the issue in the short session. In Vincennes, I'm Mike Grant, News 10.
The proposal presented to the state would include a $1 flat monthly fee on all types of phones. The public is encouraged to attend a meeting this week concerning a brownfield assessment grant. Vincennes was recently awarded the $300,000 grant from the EPA. A meeting on Wednesday will discuss the grant application, scope, and how the grant will benefit the community, businesses, and developers. Mike Medic with the Soil and Materials Engineers Incorporated will conduct the meeting, which gets underway at 5 o'clock at City Hall. The owners of a new coal mine say the project will create 330 new jobs once it hits full production in a few years. Tulsa, Oklahoma-based Alliance Resource Partners dedicated the $200 million mine last week during ceremonies at which a local minister offered a blessing for the Gibson County mine's safety and prosperity. The Princeton Daily Clarion reports the shaft construction continues at the new underground mine near Owensville, which is expected to open in 2014. The mines are expected to produce 3.3 million tons of coal and have a 330-person workforce by 2015. An Indiana University student who was arrested during a protest in Egypt is back in the U.S. Luke Gates and 2 other American students studying at American University in Cairo were arrested near Tahrir Square last Sunday. They were accused of throwing firebombs at security forces. After his arrival, the 21-year-old said he was more than happy to be back home.
Feels nice to be home?
It's nice. The only thing I want to say right now is I just want to thank Roberto, the general consulate in Cairo, the American embassy, all the lawyers we had, the lawyer that Greg's family hired. We had 2 human rights lawyers that were hired by the state. I really want to thank. They were really great to us. And all the translators we had and everything, and just
what was this like just
how
now?
much work it was to get everyone out.
Family.
It was really nice. It was really good. My flight in Atlanta got delayed by I was sleeping on a plane for like an hour and a half because they couldn't get the navigation to work. So yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice. It's a really good feeling. I'm glad to be with my family. I want to go home and have a Thanksgiving. So.
The 2 other students who were arrested with Gates in Egypt also returned home to their families last night. A deadly plane crash in the northwest Chicago suburbs. A single-engine plane crashed into the cornfield Saturday, killing the pilot and 3 passengers. You can see here in this video the wreckage as there's barely nothing left. The National Transportation Safety Board is now leading the crash investigation. The FAA and local authorities are also helping. Still to come on News Center 22, another NCAA school fires an assistant coach after sexual abuse allegations. And holiday shopping is now in full swing. We'll take a look at how the spending season has started after this break.
Next time on Secrets of the Dead, captured slaves mutiny and risk their lives for freedom.
Our aim was to go back to our own country.
But the slave traders are determined to save their ship.
He's trying to outwit the slaves at their own game. If you wrote this up in a novel, nobody would believe it.
The story of Africa's first freedom fighter.
He's amongst the heroes of all heroes.
Slave ship mutiny on Secrets of the Dead.
He had a highly unusual career path to the presidency, an unbroken trajectory of success.
Hoover's landslide victory was followed shortly by the stock market crash. Join us as we explore the story of his complex legacy.
Hoover did not sit on his hands after the stock market crash.
He did not want to abandon his belief that the American people could help one another.
Allegations of sexual abuse against young boys has cost yet another college coach's job. Syracuse University assistant basketball coach Bernie Fine was fired last night after a bombshell was dropped in his alleged abuse case. Rick Vincent reports.
Bernie Fine's coaching days are over at Syracuse University. The assistant basketball coach, who's accused of molesting 2 former ball boys, was fired after ESPN released a potentially damning phone conversation from 2002. On one end is a woman identified as Fine's wife, Lori. On the other is one of Fine's accusers, now 39-year-old Bobby Davis, who secretly recorded the conversation.
He was determined that Lori Fine, who he says had a window into this abuse, in fact, literally one time saw the abuse going on in the home through a basement window with her husband and Bobby Davis. And she alleged that that actually did happen on the tape.
Lori Fine told a local newspaper Davis may have edited the phone recording to make it appear more inflammatory. According to WCSH, a third accuser has also come forward, 23-year-old Zach Tomaselli. Tomaselli has trouble of his own. He's facing charges for allegedly sexually assaulting a 14-year-old boy in Maine. Tomaselli claims Fine molested him in a Pittsburgh hotel when he was 13, but his own father calls him a liar.
never brought him to a game in Pittsburgh or let him go to a game in Pittsburgh. So it's all fabricated.
Bernie Fine's attorneys released a statement saying, quote, Mr. Fine will not comment on newspaper stories beyond his initial statement. Any comment from him would only invite and perpetuate ancient and suspect claims. Mr. Fine remains hopeful of a credible and expeditious review of the relevant issues by law enforcement authorities. I'm Rick Vincent reporting.
No charges have been filed against Fine. Head coach Jim Boeheim backed off his earlier defense of Fine. He says the university took the appropriate steps in firing the assistant coach. Pakistan's military is denying reports that its troops may have triggered the cross-border airstrikes that killed 24 Pakistani soldiers this weekend. The deaths have drawn protests in Islamabad and several other cities. NATO has apologized for the attack, but its words haven't eased the anger in Pakistan, where demonstrators burned flags and shouted anti-American slogans. Military officials say they've shut down 2 NATO supply routes in response to the attack. For many Egyptians, it's their first taste of democracy. The opening round of a historic parliamentary election is underway. 9 months after Egyptians drove Hosni Mubarak out of office, this is seen as a key step in the country's political transformation. People have been lining up at polling stations waiting for their chance to vote. About 50 million people are eligible, and many of them will be voting for the very first time. The military council that governs Egypt refused to delay the poll, despite a week of clashes between protesters and security forces, which left 42 people dead. The head of the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces has urged people to vote. Hussein Tawanti warned of dire consequences if the political crisis continued. Activists are calling for the army to immediately hand power over to a civilian body. Lawyers for the man convicted of assassinating Senator Robert Kennedy say they have new evidence that their client is innocent. Attorneys for Sirhan say he was hypnotically influenced to fire shots at Kennedy as a diversion, while the real gunman fired from another spot. Attorneys have filed papers in court calling for Sirhan to be released from prison or granted a new trial. The 67-year-old is currently serving a life sentence for the 1968 shooting. The California Attorney General's office hasn't commented on the new court filings. Retailers rung record sales on Black Friday. Shoppers spent $11.4 billion according to ShopperTrack. That's up nearly $1 billion from last year. Online sales are also going strong. They were up 39.3% on Thanksgiving Day and 24.3% on Black Friday. That's compared to the same days last year. Well, when it's all said and done, it will be a record-breaking Cyber Monday for retailers. Analysts expect $1.2 billion in sales today. According to a survey by PriceGrabber.com, nearly 40% of consumers shopping over the Thanksgiving weekend plan to buy something online for Cyber Monday. Many stores plan to offer deep discounts. Retailers have also reported record sales for Black Friday. So far, shoppers have spent more than $11 billion. That's $1 billion more than last year. Teen star Miley Cyrus jokes about being a stoner while vampires and werewolves reign supreme at the box office. Michelle Wright has more in today's Hollywood Minute.
Miley Cyrus was reportedly caught on camera claiming to be a stoner at her 19th birthday party. People.com reports the comments came after Cyrus's gal pal